On today's episode of Consumed, I'm going to bring you the top 5 things that consumers have told me they don't care about when it comes to agents that you keep getting told are the most important thing you should be talking about. This is Consumed, the podcast for real estate agents who are tired of hearing the same old industry stuff and want to experience something completely different. Ooh, am I excited to talk about this one today? This is going to be a fun one as we're going to keep all hands and limbs inside the ride at all times today. And here's why. So I love talking about this because this is going to really force me in this episode not to curse. And so I will do my best not to drop a few 4-letter swear words in there. And you'll understand why in a second. So I want to tell you a little quick story to kick us off here. I love talking to consumers. I love talking to consumers about real estate agents, what they understand, what they don't understand, what they think, the industry on the whole, what they know and what they don't. And nothing gets me more excited than doing a consumer panel. And so this weekend, and by the way, consumer panels don't really need to be these like set up panels by a professional company and stuff. This weekend, I had fun having my own consumer panel by being at a dinner party. And I was at the dinner party. It was actually a really big dinner party. So it was a lot of people who didn't really know each other and stuff like that. And I had 7 people, actually it was 8. It was 4 couples that were sitting at my table with me. And this topic came up and I explained what I do. And I mentioned a podcast and this, and they were totally fascinated that agents cared about what you thought, like what they thought. Like they were blown away by this idea. And I said, yeah, they do care. And I said, it's really important. And so I posed a bunch of questions to them. And so today we're going to talk about the 5 biggest myths, the biggest misconceptions that we as agents inside the industry get told or get pushed, right, to be talking about or that we're told or taught to think, right, that completely misalign with what consumers think. And it's so much fun to do. And by the way, I'm going to give you the top 5. These are not just from this one consumer mini panel that I did. This is kind of consistent across the board. I'm just using it because it was so recent and I wanted to bring a little recency into it. So let's kick it off right off the bat. So top 5 things that we get told or we think as agents in the business that are the ways that we're best to connect with people or the best things that consumers really want from us that couldn't be further from the truth. Okay. And these are I'm not going to give you these really in any particular order, but we're going to kick off. The very first one, number 1, your social media is an important tool when it comes to engaging with people. It's not. And I told you, I'm going to try really hard not to curse because I wanted to say that that's actually, and you can insert whatever word you want there. Fascinating. So in the conversation, I'm talking to these folks and I said, look, I mean, how many of you know an agent on social media? And they all said, oh yeah, no, I've got a couple agents in social media. And I said, great. And how many of them do you actively follow? And they were like, well, they're in my feed. I mean, I follow them. And I said, no, how many do you actively follow? And they all looked at each other kind of sheepishly. And they're like, I don't know. I just kind of skim through that stuff because it's always something about some house they're showing or something they're doing. And I am just not, I don't know. And they felt bad saying that, which was to me the most fascinating thing ever because I was like, well, why do you feel badly saying that? And they were like, I don't know, because that's like, I don't know, they're their job and they seem so passionate about it. And it's weird. Like they literally had guilt over the idea and some kind of empathy, like the poor agent's just trying to do something for their business. But it's wild because they're looking at this from the perspective of they don't really follow it. They don't really care. It's just noise to them in their scroll and their doom scrolling, right? And then on top of that, they feel a little bit guilty about the idea that they're just sort of like, the poor thing is just trying to drum up some new business. And I was like, okay, well, tell me more. Why don't you follow it? Number 1 most common answer. It's all the same stuff. I was like, what do you mean? They're like, I don't know. It's all the same stuff. It's all about something they're doing, properties, an open house thing, them talking to other agents about stuff or like their big closing over the weekend. Like it's just stuff. And so this is an important part to start with, because I hate to break it to you, most consumers don't give a flying about your social media feed. And why? There is enough statistics that show this and prove this, that demonstrate that your social media, particular Instagram and Facebook in particular, Instagram and Facebook will, without, I'm not talking about paid advertising, just your posts on Instagram and Facebook, reach almost less than 3% of the active potential audience that you're trying to hit. Less than 3%. Now, if you look at something like YouTube, 60% or greater. But why? Because Facebook and Instagram is so oversaturated, it's insane. And on top of that, if you think about what it is that you're doing, and I see agents do this all the time, we foster stereotypes all day long inside of social media. We foster horrifically bad stereotypes. I saw one the other day, the hot new trend, and everybody jumps on these things and it's kind of nauseating. But I saw these agents, it was a team that posted, where you, I don't know, there's going to be a name for this. Someone can correct me in the notes. I don't know what it's called because I'm not cool anymore. But it's those little like figurines, like the fake figurines that you create of yourself, like an action figure type thing. And so there's 4 members of the team, and I won't do it. I really want to post this in the show notes just so people can see it. But there were 4 figurines, and each figurine had, I think it was like 4 different little like tchotchke things in there about them. And one of them was, on every one of them, they had the brokerage that they worked with, which, by the way, that's going to come to number 4 when we talk about things that people don't care about. But they had the brokerage. They had like what they do for fun. They had, and I looked at these things and they all had the same thing. Ready? It was either a laptop or a cell phone in all of them. It was their favorite cocktail. It was like a chocolate martini in one, or a wine glass in another, or another one was just a regular martini. And like I was like a Moscow Mule. They had either running sneakers or a tennis racket or a golf club, right? And then some like notepad or whatever with the brokerage name they worked on. And all I thought was amazing. Let's call this what it is. What did you just tell people? Well, what you just told them was, I'm a real estate agent. Here's the brokerage I work for. I'm really never actually doing real estate because I'm either always in the tennis court or playing golf. It was like, and every one of them was the same. And so to me, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, well, how much further could you foster the stereotype of what people generally think? It blew me away. So this conversation with these people at the dinner table, I'm listening to this, and again, social media, they could not care less about the agent's social media. And each one of them had 3 or 4 agents that they had in their feed. So how do we correct this problem? How do we fix this? Well, number 1, begin to realize and accept that real estate is always 10 years behind every other major industry. You need to be focusing on your engagement in places like YouTube that has longer lasting evergreen content and things like that, and not stuff that is, again, stuff that was cool 10 years ago, right? And that's the problem, is that we keep being told, and I guarantee you every person hearing the sound of my voice right now is getting inundated with, things that you need to be doing Instagram and your hashtags and your blah blahs, and, run around the office with a microphone asking people like, hey, Cindy, what was the best book that you read this summer? Oh my gosh. And nobody cares. Nobody cares. The other thing that was important was that somebody pointed out, and I already knew this already, but I just thought it was interesting that they caught this. Somebody pointed out that when they looked at the comments were all other agents. And I was like, yes, because half the agents do that because it's a networking thing, because all they're doing is following other agents, right? And so that was the very first thing. So that was number 1. So quick tip, consumers don't really care about your social media. Is it important to have as a digital business card element? Of course it is. Should it be probably fostered and driven more toward the brand of you as a human being, as a person, things about you, things about your family, things about the stuff that you do that make you who you are, that help develop and foster better trust with you as an individual? Yes. But if you're sitting there cranking out stuff about real estate, it's really just not hitting a major audience that is going to be interested in anything you're putting out there. The second one I asked was, hey, there was 2 of the couples had sold within the past 3 years. And I said, just what was the big thing that made you work with the agent that you selected? And they said, well, no, they came referred by somebody else. And I was like, great. And I said, well, in the listing presentation portion of stuff, what was it that they connected with? Like, what was the thing that they were talking about that that really made you feel most comfortable with them? And they said, super genuine and really nice and great. And then I asked the magic question. I said, well, did they tell you all about their marketing? And they're like, oh, yeah, we actually interviewed 2 people. And somebody else said it like, oh, yeah, well, I remember when we sold our house, like, the big thing was on their marketing and all the things they did for their marketing and how they're going to market the property and all this different stuff. And I chuckled a little bit and I was like, okay, cool. And I said, how much do you think that marketing helped sell your home? And again, I get this like weird sheepish little look at each other and grin from all of them. And they're like, well, I'm sure it helped. And I was like, that was the most unconvincing answer I've ever heard in my life. I'm sure it helped. Like, did you? Oh, no. It was, probably it was like, I think the people that ended up buying it, they came because they were talking to another agent and they met, whatever. And here's how because we in the industry, we live inside this bubble, unfortunately, where we don't get to hear things from the outside world. And when we do hear things from the outside world, we don't pay attention to them. And I'm going to give you the perfect example. So how do I know that when you're and I literally say this to consumers, if you talk to an agent and during their listing presentation, the biggest thing they have to offer you is their marketing of your property, run, find another agent because they have nothing for you. Because a good agent is going to talk about marketing some and then talking about points of differentiation of what they do, how they do it, what makes them different and how they engage with you and help support you in the process. But the agents that come in with these marketing pitch books and all these things of all the stuff that they're going to be doing, it's kind of all bullshit there. Sorry, I tried. I made it 10 minutes or 15 minutes into this before I cursed, but it's bullshit. And here's why. I'll prove it with one thing. If you're an agent right now, go back and look at all of the reviews you've gotten. Go to your Google business profile, go to your listing presentation, go back and look at all the reviews you've got. And I challenge you to find one that mentions your marketing. I'll wait. It's not there. They don't exist because nobody gives that feedback that was like, well, Bob was great, especially Bob's marketing was the single reason that we got 3% above asking. Said no one ever. That's not a thing. What do you hear them say? Oh, Bob was fantastic because he helped us work through this really difficult situation that we were dealing in. Samantha really knew how to engage with us in the best way because she really listened to what our needs were. You hear things about the human connection of this stuff, right? So no, I'm not saying you shouldn't show somebody your marketing, but I also am telling you that when it comes to what their perception of it is, they don't really care all that much about it. They want to know about it. It is important, but it should not be the biggest thing that you are pressing forward and addressing with somebody. Which leads me to number 3. And you're going to go, yeah, but Lance, I know this one already. Yeah, and yet you do it anyway. I said, how many of you get a newsletter from the agent that you worked with? And one of them said, actually, I've never received anything from the agent that we worked with. Like, they just disappeared after the transaction. I was like, okay, well, good to know. The other 2 couples said, yeah, no, we get the weekly updates and whatever. And I was like, okay, that's cool. How long ago did you buy the house? They were like 3 years ago. And I'm like, great. So you're still getting the what's new to the market 3. Yeah, what's up? Yeah. The other 2 couples said, oh, I don't know. I unsubscribed. I unsubscribed from all that stuff. And I was like, cool. And why am I sharing this as one of the myths? Because we're told that we need to do our touches. You have to have your touches. It takes 32 touches in order for someone to remember you. Well, we need to stop touching people. I know there's no HR department in real estate, but please stop touching people. This doesn't do anything for you, okay? If you have a newsletter because you are a huge fan of golf, and I've got one client in particular. She plays golf. She's very avid in the golf community. A lot of the clients that she has are golfers. And she has this banging newsletter. It's awesome. It's all about golf. It is top tips, tricks. She gets quotes from some of the top pros in the area. She has links to videos on certain things that are super interesting. She has in there, and at the very bottom, she has like 3 or 4 properties that are on golf courses, right? And it's a great newsletter because it's directed specifically to a demographic that she primarily works with in and around the things that they find interesting. By the way, nothing to do with real estate, really. And it is so well received and opened that when she actually went, I think she went away. I can't remember. She took a big trip, Beijing, China. I don't remember what it was, but it was like she was gone for like a month and it didn't come out. She had 72 emails come in going, did you stop doing that newsletter? I need to get that. What happened to that? So if you are doing that, God bless, that is great. But according to most consumers, they don't care about your newsletter. It is not something they're even getting. And agents fight me on this all the time. I say this, and they're like, well, people love my newsletter. And I'm like, cool, let's look at the math behind that. How do you know that? Oh, people write me and tell me all the time they love my newsletter. And I'm like, really? People write you all the time and tell you how much they love your newsletter? Let me guess. It's like the same 5 or 6 people, and your newsletter goes out to 3,000 people, but 6 of them are like, this is the greatest thing ever. Based on that percentage, you better start going and playing New York State lottery or something, because you're going to make a lot more money there than you are. It mathematically doesn't make any sense. Simply because 6 people love it doesn't mean that the other, whatever it is, 994 other people are like, this is the greatest thing. I just don't have time to send Bob an update and let him know how much I love this. So newsletters, no. If you're going to do something, it needs to be focused around a demographic of people. It needs to be focused on what they care about, and it needs to be something, or even something that you're passionate about. I'll give you another suggestion. I've got a client that is, one of the ongoing jokes in his house is that he's obsessed with buying things that are technologically related for the house. So much so that his wife gets annoyed because another Amazon package shows up and she's like, oh my gosh, really? Like, what the hell is it? Why do we have something as a vacuum and a mop robot? Like, we have a cleaning person. Why do I have this? And so he turned that into something in which he has both a newsletter and a YouTube channel dedicated toward tech crap in the house. And it's really, really funny. It's interesting and engaging, and people really like it. He's developed a pretty good following in and around. In fact, so much so he has sponsorship now and gets paid on the side for placement of certain products and things in and around the house. But again, it has a big traction following. It's home related and it's interesting. So let's talk about number 4. Number 4, I touched on just slightly before. Number 4, and this is my favorite because there's a NAR statistic that backs this up. Consumers do not care what brand or brokerage you're with. In fact, even NAR in all of their studies showed that only 3% of consumers care what brand or brokerage the agent is with. You are the product. You are the commodity. You are the thing, right? And you should always remember that a brokerage works for you. Okay. I don't know when we lost sight of this. And I'll tell you right now, with all the things in the world that go on, clear cooperation, attempted to be eliminated and all that stuff, it is because brokerages continue to try and glom onto more power as they try and consolidate. But the reality of it is you're the person with the relationship with the consumer. You're the person that's developed a business. You're the person that has the history. You're the person, right, that brings the money in. The brokerage works for you. And how do we know that? Well, it's proven by that actual statistic. Only 3% of people care what brand or brokerage you are with. So that begs the question then. And I ask folks, do you really care? And they're like, no, not really. And then why do we come into a listing presentation with this like glossy booklet that talks all about here it, and so I don't get canceled, I won't mention any names, but like, we have the international buyer, and here you're going to be in the Beijing Times, and you're going to be in this, and the brokerage does this, and my brokerage does that, and my brokerage does this, and we have the international buyer. And I always tell people, like, challenge that. I tell consumers all the time, when someone says, we have the international buyer, tell the agent, show me how many closed transactions you have this year from an international buyer. I'll wait. You don't have any, right? It's just nice fluff that people like to say, right? So again, something to keep in mind when you think about these things, right? Why are we leading with all the things that my brand, my company does for you and how great? No. You're the commodity. You're the product. And last but not least, I will say this is the single biggest thing. If you have nothing that you take away from today's episode, this should be it. Drum roll, please. I don't know if we can insert drum roll music. I don't know. Hey, Gary, can we put something on here for, there's no Gary. I literally a guy sitting home alone quite pathetically. But the number 5 thing, I asked them, what is the most important thing that you're looking for in an agent? When you think about getting an agent, what do you want? What are you looking for? And we are told trust. They want trust, a trusted advisor. I can tell you right now that if I went on the street in the middle of town and I grabbed some random person, I was like, tell me what you think about your real estate agent. That there's no way they're going to go, well, my real estate agent is a trusted advisor who helps me with the largest transaction. Said no one ever. That's not a thing. The interesting thing when you break it down, and I asked, one couple said, somebody that kind of like understands what we need. And everyone kind of nodded their head to the same thing. Another couple said, we just want to make sure that they're communicating with us properly. And I was like, great, let's dig into that. Because people always say agents are terrible with communication. And agents love running around and saying, oh, I'm a great communicator. Okay. And I said, what does that mean in communication? And they said, well, we want to feel like we have, and then they threw the magic word in. And this is a word that I've heard a lot. Okay. Partnership. We want to feel like we have a partnership with the person and doing what it is that we're working on. And if you take nothing away from this episode, no, partnership is what the consumer wants. They want a partner. Nobody at that table, and I haven't heard anybody say, oh, I want a local market expert. I'm looking for a local market expert. Yes, these are things they want. Yes, they want to trust the person they're working with. Yes, they want someone that has local experience and knowledge. Of course. But at the root, when we think about what it is that we do with people and for people, you're not in sales. Our job is to help shepherd people through the third most stressful time in a human being's life, right behind death and job loss, right? And to do so with what is the most expensive asset most people have. And so when you think about how do I better engage with people, how do I really meet consumers where they're at? One, forget this concept of value and showing my value. We all have the same value in essence. Show them points of differentiation, and secondarily, help them understand that you're in partnership with them, right? That this is a we process that we're working on together, not that I'm this great subject matter expert that's coming in to tell you exactly what you should do, because that reduces tension. And I promise you, we'll talk about it on another episode, because that root of you trying to show them that you are very important is where most of your stress and a lot of anxiety during the transaction comes in. So recapping, top 5. And by the way, side note, these folks loved the fact that I was out there talking to them about what agents want to understand from them and want their needs. And they were like, well, what do you do with this now? And I was like, all right, it goes on the podcast. You can listen to it if you want. I'm not going to lie. I actually have a bunch of consumers that listen to this, not just agents, right? Because they like understanding and hearing about some of the different things that happen with inside the industry and how you all engage with them. So top 5 again. Your social media is exciting for you. And yes, you need to have it, but stop thinking that it is some great connection point that you're going to be having that's going to completely revolutionize your business. Your marketing, yes, is important, but it can't be the only thing that you're bringing to the table for people. It really needs to be something that has a better balance for differentiation. Newsletters, unless they're very specific and they're to a demographic around specificity that's not just real estate related, nobody cares. You can just cut that off now if you want to. I promise you, 31 touches instead of 32 touches is just fine. The brand that you're with, the brokerage that you're with, also, nobody cares. All the excitement that these brokerages develop around all the things that we do for you are exciting for them to keep you with them. When it comes to the consumers, you all know they're buying you. You're the product, you're the commodity, you're the thing that they're trying to develop the relationship with, which leads to the last one, which is what is it the consumers want more than anything else? Partnership. Please, 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 if you take nothing else away, focus on transactions and developing a business and meeting people in the consumer world where they're at by pointing out all the things that you do that foster and create great partnership with them in how they engage in their business. And with that, I will let you get back to watching episodes of Jerry Springer. I'm just kidding. I don't know. It's what I did back in the day.